I don't know if you guys get to see one of the topics I shared about motivation just recently. Um, Let me show you my screen. Um, so when I spoke about motivation, I don't know whether you saw this image before.
Ah, yeah.
So initially when I talk about this, it's like motivation is not enough. And when I say that, it's because it's not going to last forever and it's very volatile. Sometimes when we think about our motivation, is pretty much that a little amount of sort of push that we get to start something or do something about it. But sometimes that's not enough to actually keep us on track and keep us in the long run. So that's where things and other things come into place. And when I talk about that, I refer to your commitment and intention to do certain things. You got to find something that you can consistently use and replace with, which is much more than motivation. So when we start basically anything, we start with inspiration. We're inspired, we saw something around, let's say, well, let's talk about the challenges specifically. It's just like a fleeting emotion that needs to be backed up with something stronger than that. So when you think about inspiration, you think about trying to follow an example or something you that gave you some kind of inspiration, and you really wanted to go, and you know what, now I'm quite motivated. So motivated, um, now you're motivated, you're feeling like you are much more into what you wanted to achieve, but you want to improve that by specifically setting a goal or something like that. So when when that happens, we want to think about something that is just more stronger, because motivation sometimes is very high, and motivation sometimes is just like you say, Katia. I just don't feel like doing something today, or how can I keep going with the same sort of intention? So that's where
Yeah, and
commitment.
keep
Yeah.
that consistent behavior for life.
Yeah, so that's where commitment and the intention comes into place, because they can fill up the gaps when low motivation is there. Well, my motivation is low, but I am still committed to achieve my goals, and I am really like you visualize where you want to be, and that's your intention, and that's how you commit to something that just doesn't rely on something so volatile like motivation. um, and then you gotta look at important things like planning. So obviously when we think about um, not just using motivation but your intention and commitment, you gotta have a plan in place. If you don't have a plan, you won't have anything to stick to when motivation is not there. So if you have a plan, it's just easier when your motivation is high. But when your motivation is low, you have something like a map, a roadmap to adjust and to adhere to, so you can follow it. That's why I always tell you guys to use the consistency calendar as a way of accountability, and a way to remind yourself the things your intentions and the things you want to achieve, even if it's like a short term, like a per weekly basis. So that helps you to go a little bit higher on the ladder and think about discipline. How discipline can just not it's not just um, something emotional, but it's also something that will give you that intentional uh, and using some of that willpower you have stored for those times that you can use it when you're kind of lacking of that sort of motivation. The problem with the willpower as well, even if it helps you to adhere to something, you really need to think about that willpower has a caveat that is pretty much burn out pretty quickly. And when I mean by that, it's like if you use a lot of your discipline and your willpower throughout the day, then when it comes to make another extra decision, you will struggle, because you will run out of willpower. So that's why it is really important to repeat and repeat the same actions that you want to get good at, because once you do that, discipline you start looking at a discipline as something that you don't need as much now, because it's become a habit, and it's just easier for you to do that in automatic pilot, rather than just thinking of, oh, I have to do this and I need to do it because this is the way I need to do things to achieve my goals. So that's what I really focus on, going up the ladder slowly, but really trying to use all the things you can to build that sustainable habits. And that's pretty much the fundamentals of getting to a point where you can sustain changes over time, rather than just using something to achieve a goal in a short term, and then because you didn't create these habits, then you go back to your old patterns. One of the girls, I think was Jessica, or some of the girls were mentioning that. I just think that I start really good, but then as we go by, then I go back to my old habits. And the main thing about this is we really need to stop thinking about short term or very emotional. Oh yes, I'm starting this, I'm so excited. Yes, it is an excitement, and that's really good, that's important, but we need to do a little bit more than that. And to do that, we really need to focus on what can I do to make it sustainable, to make it habitual for me. And that's basically what the calendar is about, is putting things in place that you know you're likely to be doing on a daily basis, that you know they're achievable. If I put things that are not achievable, I will need to use a lot of willpower, I will need to use a lot of discipline, and then things become a little bit harder. And as we go, you end up not doing the things as you were supposed to do, and you feel like a failure. You start seeing a lot of blanks, or a little bit weird ticks in your calendar, and then that discourages you, and then you want to stop stop doing what you wanted to do, because you're struggling to get there. So that's why setting realistic goals, achievable and smart, are really important to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yourself.
What is that,
You
sorry?
are on mute. Okay. My question is, what do you do yourself to keep motivation? Because you train very often, right? As I saw in Instagram and Facebook. And somehow I admire the way you train. And I mean, I wonder, how do you keep your motivation for so long? Like, I'm doing it, but I wonder, like, if in the future I will be able to be like you, let's say. Like, what do you do yourself?
Yeah. So it is really important to think about sometimes what you see in social media is not the real life, it's not the whole picture. And as well as you, I'm a human being, and I really struggle sometimes to stay consistent as well. When I go to the gym, sometimes I have no energy, or I feel like I'm not very motivated at all to actually go into the gym. So it is something that connects back to what I was just explaining. It's something that it's not just about whether I want it or not, because if it was about me and my intention and just my motivation, I would probably go like once or twice a week. What happens is I have built over the years not just the commitment and the discipline, but it's for me it's a habit that my body is actually um, it seeks for that sort of extra effort. And sometimes if I don't even exercise, I get migraines. I don't feel good physically, I don't feel good if I don't exercise. I got to a point in my life with exercise that is so into my body, and is so deep and connected, and it's become such a habit that when I actually don't get to do it, I feel awful. I feel like, no way, I'm not really going to feel good today. On the other hand, I had a period where I really struggled to actually get to the gym because I was just not finding something that I was interested in doing anymore. I went for a period where I was going to the gym, I was building strength, I was exercising and doing routines, different routines on a daily basis. But then I kind of lost my focus, and I was like, I am really struggling to find a specific way to get my motivation back up, or what should I be doing at the gym? What is my purpose? What am I doing at the gym in the first place, apart from feeling good? Yeah, now that's already a habit. I am showing up at the gym, but what else? So what is there for me to keep me there in the gym? It's not just a habit thing anymore, but now is, what can I do to keep me coming, keep me in love with this? Because I got to a point where I was pretty much lost in what should I be doing. So that's where I started thinking, and that's part of your planning and putting things down and trying to solve problems along the way. So what I did is I wrote down, and I thought in the back of my head, what are the things I do that can be enjoyable, safe, because I have a back injury, so I don't want to get too excited and then get back to an injury that I'm already good. I don't have any problems anymore with it, as long as I'm very cautious. So CrossFit is not a good idea. I like it, but it's something that is too aggressive for me. I can do a modified version of CrossFit, and sometimes I can do it and I feel good. Um, but I really want something a little bit more challenging in terms of like technique, or something that will just keep me trying to improve. And then I thought about, well, I do like powerlifting and I like weightlifting. What of those can be that I could do? And I pretty much chose to do like a mixture of both. And that's what I've been doing in combination with my old sort of training knowledge. Like, for example, my warm-ups won't be as similar as other people that they just do little movements with each part of the body. I do like more like an animal flow, dynamic stretching. I combine yoga. I put whatever it feels good and gets me ready to do my training. But basically, it's not just relying on one thing. It's a habit now. That is something that is along the years have become a habit because I've been consistent. So everything goes back to consistency.
Do you do cardio as well?
Yeah. So when I do my planning for the week, I try to have a session of the week that I pretty much focus on lifting. Then if I still have time, I might do a little bit of cardio, but it's a cardio that gets me loose to then stretch at the end. So it's not like a real intense cardio. It's just walking on an incline treadmill. And like, for example, yesterday I decided to do just cardio as a way to get my muscles relaxed, and because I was very tired from the day before that I did back and whole body. So I kind of use cardio as a way to break down the trainings splits throughout the week, so I can use training, weightlifting, a little bit of cardio or stretching or rehab as a way to at least get something and do something in the gym, rather than saying, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to do anything, I stay at home because it's a rest day. If it's a rest day, I honor my body, and if I really feel exhausted and tired, I take my day off. And it's not like I used to be very, very stressed about needing to go to the gym and show up every day, and I was exhausted. I wasn't recovering well because I was pushing myself too hard. Now I know, and I've learned this over the years, that your body needs to rest if you want to perform well, especially if you have a specific goals, like you want to lift, do an overhead squat, or do a specific performance. You need to get your body to be recovered, especially if the exercise or the movements you're doing at the gym requires more technique and strength and good mobility, and your joints can get sore over time. So that's something that you need to consider as well, is at least once or twice a week you need to get yourself a stop from the gym and recover. And that can be just a gentle walk, can be a long walk, something that doesn't include that ongoing lifting or that different sort of training every single muscle every day. It's just going to the gym if you want, and if the intention is to create a habit and show up, you go to the gym, but you're not going to work out. You're going to stretch, you're going to do rehab, a little bit of yoga, different things that are just more gentle to your body. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing I really wanted to touch base is something that I think is going to be very useful for you guys in terms of looking at how to make a deficit suck less. Because calorie deficits and dieting sucks,
Yeah.
but how to make it less
Very important.
Less uncomfortable. So I think it's something that I really wanted to touch base about. So just give me one. What do you think so far, Katya?
Yeah, that you're 100% right. What I'm thinking is pumpkin. Pumpkin. You can eat so much and it's so little in calories.
Yeah.
And it's carbs, fiber, etc. But yeah, I've discovered pumpkin.
Pumpkin is not bad. I think I try to think about food more like neutral way. So I don't judge any sort of food because of the nutritional content. I've been trying really, really hard to see every food as they are just foods. And as well as a chocolate can be very delicious. If I see it with an emotion, then I am more likely to be attached emotionally with some things and feel really uncomfortable when I stop eating them. So you really want to have look at every single food neutrally. So there's no good or no bad, it's no best or wrong. You know internally and deep enough that some foods are much more nutritious. They contain more nutrients, calories, on the other hand, or you have those ones that are lower calories but higher in protein, higher in micronutrients. And you see that at the end of the day, that's what you want to have more often. But at the same time, you see that the other foods you still see neutral and they're not as nutritious, they still can play a good role in your diet, and you're still able to have some of that on a regular basis without feeling like you're going to binge on it. You're like, that's a novelty. Or when you think about when someone for the first time tells you I love you, it's like, oh my god, he told me he loved me. And that's the emotion you feel every time you see a food you restrict. It's like, oh my god, I just had a piece of chocolate that was so good, and you attach so much emotion to it that creates a sort of a system of reward, and that makes you feel like you need to depend and rely on those foods to make you feel good. But when you think about foods in general, and you think about, oh yeah, I had a piece of chocolate, it's when you've been married for 10 years and your husband come and tell you I love you. Oh yeah, you're still happy, you like it, and it means a lot, but you're not excited as much because you know it's there. You know it's something that is been part of your life for a long time. So that's the same sort of analogy I really want you to think about when you think about building a relationship with food. If you see everything is the same, it's neutral, and the relationship is not as novel, you will find that every food you have is going to be good, but you're not going to attach so much emotion to it. So you're much less likely to feel judged by your own critique, or think about food as, oh, this is just, I only can have this today, and because I'm not going to have it the rest of the week, I better have everything I can today. So you want to shift that mindset. So if you actually think you could have it anytime, you have unconditional permission to have it anytime, you can have it today, you can have it tomorrow, then you're more likely to say, you know what, I just don't really think I need that, because you start connecting to your inner intentions, and you start thinking, well, does this really aligns with my goals? If I had it every day, it probably is not going to align with my goals. So you really want to be intentional. Yes.
Astrid, the problem with that type of thinking, because I've been trying to implement it, is I know too much about calories. So I sit there thinking to myself, I want to lose weight, I'm trying to teach myself that I can have whatever I want, whenever I want. But I know what an impact a super high calorie meal will have because I know that it's super high in calories. I know that that will have a negative impact on me. So it's very difficult to merge that mindset of I can have whatever I want and try and be neutral about it, but at the same time, I know that this is at least 1,500 calories for one meal.
Well,
if that makes sense.
yeah, I really get you. And what I really want you to think about is what can be the worst thing that can happen if you allowed yourself to do that every now and then, and you were very mindful and intentional about it. If that actually helps you to feel like, if that actually helps you to adhere to your plan better, and maybe it's going to not be as fast as you wish it was, but it perhaps is going to create a better relationship with food. It's going to make you feel like you're not having restrictions that can lead you to fail in the long run. And it's always been intentional about it and think whether these things, these decisions you take are truly something that are going to mean something if you do them. If they have meaning and if they create a good experience, it is actually good. Or even thinking about a much more in-depth analysis of why do I want to do this and the reason behind it. It's more like questioning and reflecting on an ongoing basis why you do certain things, why are you choosing these foods today, why do you want to have that 1,000-calorie worth a snack, is it worth it? So you ask these questions when you actually may find the answer is, you know what, it's not worth it. Or, you know what, I really like it. It's going to make me feel really good, but I'm going to eat it mindfully and slowly. I'm just going to have a little bit of it. And if I want more, I'll have more. But I'll set a bright line of, you know what, I'm going to stop right here. I am going to allow myself to have it. And I would say it takes time to feel like moderation is it starts getting easier. It's not easy to moderate. Say, oh, look, I just can't have just these 2 pieces and then I stop. Sometimes that can be really hard. You really need to think about eating as, okay, I start practicing this sort of mindful eating, and at the same time, I will stop when I am ready, and continue to practice that over time, because what you want to get out of that high calorie food is the pleasure of it, the experience of the taste. How does it taste? How does it feels when it goes into your mouth, and the texture and the flavors and the experience. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you really want to think about that in the first place before you ever eat anything that has a high calorie or is a dessert or is a sweet. Think about that little thing. How does that make me feel? Does that make sense, Katya?
Yeah, it's something to give a try.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's just I know what sort of behaviors to put in place if I want a high calorie meal, and I think that adjustments and having less calories throughout the week or whatever, just to allow for it if I want to lose weight, I think that's what causes a bit of a shitty relationship with food from my side. I don't know if anyone else agrees.
Yeah, I think it is just slowly thinking that, again, let me go through the principles I was just mentioning about how to make dieting and calorie deficit suck less for a sustainable weight loss results. So one of the first things I talk about is mindset of not giving in or giving up. You can't, if you have in your head that this is not a race and you can't just mess this up because you're not competing against anything or anyone but you, you can have everything you want in moderation. And if you go out at a Friday night, for example, and you have a slice of pizza or a piece of cake, and you start thinking, oh, you fucked this up, you become more anxious and let yourself go by using this excuse or justification, consciously or not, to continue fucking up and to keep going off track. So what happened if you actually change the mindset? If you still had something like a slice of pizza or piece of cake, you didn't fuck this up, so you better continue on track tomorrow. Or if it was early in the day, you stop thinking about that you messed the rest of the day and you continue to do better choices. The second one is stop the all or nothing approach. I know moderation is key, and it is a really hard and ambiguous word when you say, well, moderation, what is moderation? How much is moderation? And it's really hard to actually define moderation, but obviously moderation and balance kind of go hand in hand, and it's looking at what is adequate for you. It's very related to how much can be enough to for me to feel satiated, to feel good, without going overboard, without going crazy. So the only thing that you can be successful at this is trying to practicing balance on a daily basis. It's something that you need to go with that flexibility, with that flexible mindset of choosing the things without having in the back of your head that is a restricted food, that is something that you can't have anymore, or it is forbidden in your food list. So if you have everything, as I mentioned, was talking to you about neutrality of all the foods, you will find that you have much less risk of going off track or going to binge. It is also important to think about diet breaks. Small diet breaks are either having a plan, and I talked about this previously in the group, of how should I just maybe doing that cycle of the calories, where some days I might be able to be stronger at slower calories, and days that I just need to go back at maintenance, that I don't feel like I am getting that low in calories, and that's just going to make me feel better, make me feel good. So it's looking at those times where you can go and alternate deficits and maintenance. So you think about the long term, so a slow sustainable fat loss, and decide how long and how much and how fast you want to go, and stick to it. That's basically the way, a really smart way to actually get to the end and stay consistent with that. Another one that I really find that is really important is sometimes even tracking can be overwhelming. So if you only focus on calories and protein, if you're tracking, that can be a massive win, just by focusing on hitting your calorie targets and protein, when carbs and fats can be just ambiguous. If you think about, well, I had more fats than carbs today, but tomorrow I have more carbs than fats, that's fine. But if you're hitting your protein and calories, you will still be able to lose weight. And that is just allowing yourself to have much more flexibility when it comes to planning and having variety of meals. So when it comes to structure your meals in order of events, which foods can feel you best over the long term? So what you got to think about, fats and protein is the more filling ones. Carbs might fill you up shorter, but not for long term. But it very depends on what sort of type of carbohydrate we're talking about. So here I would be referring, the ones that don't last for very long are potentially carbohydrates, like refined carbohydrates, like bread, pasta, or rice, or things like they can go very, very good in your stomach, and they can fill you up quickly in your short term. But then, because you didn't have much of other macronutrients, you feel really hungry quick, very quick. So one of the strategies is to try to think about salads and a variety of vegetables first, as a way to start getting fuller before you even get to the carbohydrates or the desserts. And think about adding a little bit of protein, and then start your carbohydrates once you're already full. Like, think about a plate of pasta or bread. If you already have your protein and your vegetables, you're already full at some point, and when you eat something else, it's going to be much less likely to have a big amount. So you will just have a little bit of it and you feel full. if you're trying to lose fat and struggling to hit your protein intake, and I've seen this in quite a few of you guys, focus on having either extra protein, a scoop of protein intake, or protein shake anytime during the day. You can find in the supermarket, I think, anywhere in the world, just neutral flavor protein powder that you can add to anything. You can add it to soups, to smoothies, to mashed potato, to anything really. And that can just help you to boost your protein intake without even thinking about it. There's another thing that it is important to be aware of, and it's focusing on low fats and least healthy foods to be your go-to all the time. What happened with this mentality is that sometimes we focus on uh, foods that are lower fat or lower calorie, but because they are not satiating enough or they don't feel like you didn't enjoy them, they can just be part of your uh, sort of provoking for you to eat more at the end of the day, because you feel like, oh, now after 1 hour I ate, I'm hungry again. So it doesn't make sense if it's not making you feel full or getting you satiated. So you got to choose things that will give you much more feeling and make you feel fuller for longer and give you more satiety. For example, when you think about rice cakes, they aren't filling at all. And you can have 5, 10, 8, 20, and you don't still feel like you feel full. You can eat a lot of them and you're not really having anything that you feel like, oh, I had something that was really good. You might have rice cakes, but you're not really enjoying them and they're not quite filling. So you end up eating like a bag of those at the end of the day. But to eat that, you need something else to eat that with. You probably need or ham or peanut butter, or you need cheese, something else. So the more cakes, the more rice cakes you eat, the more your calories you're going to put in your body. But if you actually decided to, hey, I want a sandwich, and that's going to fill me up, you'll have one sandwich with just 1 or 2 slices of ham and cheese, and that's it. I'm good. And you feel like, even though it looks like has more calories at first, it is actually much and a smart move, because you're having much more control over something that you know you're going to stop when it's finished, and it's not like a low calorie, just a or calorie free meal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The other one very important is, well, how can I do if I am in a social event? And this is
Yeah.
important because you really want to set bright lines. And by bright lines, I mean boundaries. I mean certain individual personal rules that you put to yourself that you know you have to stick to them. So when you go to certain places and you don't have a plan, you actually need to you have in the back of your head that ambiguity of, what should I eat, what am I going to do if there's a lot of food, or if there's non-food, if there's desserts. So you run into trouble when you don't know. But if you have a rule in the first place, you know at least what is your limit without restriction. Make fit everything you want, but in one plate, just one plate. Perhaps that's your rule. I'm going to go to this buffet, but I'm going to have this one plate, and anything that fits in the plate, I'm going to have it. But I'm not going to go again for a second plate. Or if dessert is available, amongst all the different desserts, I'm going to eat just the one plate. I might just pick this one specific dessert and not going to start jumping from one to another. If in social events, the best excuse is, instead of saying I don't eat or X or I don't drink anymore, you can probably, a smart way to say that is, oh, I'm doing a personal challenge for the next 6 months, that I'm not drinking or not eating that anymore. And people are going to actually admire that, instead of trying to get you out of your personal goal and saying, you know what, you better off, why don't you join us? But if you're telling them, oh no, I'm doing a personal challenge, oh, that's cool, tell me more about that, and they're actually interested, and sometimes people think about joining as well. And the last one I was really interested to talk about is most foods that can not just be nutritious but can be very filling, can be very helpful when it comes to go low calorie, more volume, increase your volume. It's things that are, it has volume but has low calories, and that can allow you to eat more, especially when you're actually feeling hungry. So miso soup, watermelon, strawberries, oranges, apples, or the one of the with the higher water content can be your watermelon or oranges. You can have probably lean meats, any lean meats, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, eggs, spices, or foods that are spicy can actually be very filling. You could have sparkling water or diet soda. The actual gas actually makes you feel more full, and not, and the ones that are not so great or not very filling are the ones that can be low fiber, very high palatable, has a lot of extra fat or sodium, and they're very easy to overeat, like rice cakes, nuts, nut butters, even if they're considered healthy, like peanut butter. I can easily eat a jar of it in one go. So it's not a very smart idea to have it, and that has a lot of calories. So you really want to think about things that are in a certain way very smart to choose, and eat them whenever you need to have them, if you feel like that's going to make you feel a little bit more fuller and reduce your risk of feeling like you're ravenously hungry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. I know this time is a little bit harder for a lot of people, so I will put the link of this video today in YouTube as well, so everyone can see it. So that's basically it for today. Your question you asked about intermittent fasting. So with intermittent fasting, you really want to think about whether it's sustainable and it's something you enjoy. If it's something that you think you're thinking way too much about it, and you think it's the magic and the perfect strategy, it is not. Okay, so it doesn't have any additional major benefits, and if the intermittent fasting has any extra benefit, it's still not yet confirmed with enough studies to say this is perfectly going to get you live longer or reduce your risk of cancer or things like that. There are some studies that suggest they do have certain benefits, but most of these studies have been done in animals rather than humans. So
okay, that was my question, because I'm reading a lot about this intermittent fasting, and because because of health reasons, I was wondering, like, does it really work as they say? Because if it does, we don't need medicine anymore. It's a miracle. But
yeah,
I was not sure, right?
yeah, no. Intermittent fasting, look at it as a tool, just to, like any other tool, like ketogenic diet or the Atkins diet or any other diet that you see in the market, or you hear these trends. Intermittent fasting is another one that is just a tool that people uses if they don't want to count calories, and this basically reducing the time or the window to eat. So if you only can eat between this time and this time, following certain rules, obviously it's not like eating as much as you can in this time, but keeping a normal routine and normal amount of food within this time window, and you stop eating at this time and you start eating at this time, you're reducing the chances of eating more calories. And that's what makes people lose weight in the first place. So it's more like a way to create a calorie deficit, that it doesn't actually require as much counting calories, because you're pretty much skipping a meal, which could be breakfast, and then you're skipping or eating earlier at dinner, so you're not like eating at night before bed or snacking. So it just reduces the calories you would normally eat if you were coming from 8, 7, 6 meals a day, from just 3 meals a day, maybe one snack, and that's it, and you gotta stop. So intermittent fasting is not magical, it's not a miracle, it's not going to make any difference if you're not connected, or if you think that's not going to be sustainable. Now, some people might do intermittent fasting because that works for them, maybe they don't like to have this much breakfast, so they're very busy in the morning, so they just do use that as part of their normal routine, but that doesn't mean they can have whatever they want after. They still follow certain moderation and balance the rest of the day, and normal meal quantities. It's not like they have huge quantities. But if you thought about, well, I don't have time to have breakfast, then I just could redistribute my calories in a better way, so I can have more food for lunch and for dinner. And then you're the kind of person who likes to have like bigger meals, so then you can have that as well, if that works for you.
Okay.
Does that
Understood.
do you have any more
Yeah.
questions?
I don't think so. I have questions every day, but I think I send them all to you and
Yeah.
you reply them. So not for the moment.
Okay. So the last thing I really want to ask you guys is, I would really like to, because we're kind of in our first month since we started this group coaching program, I really would like to hear from you. What are your thoughts of how is this going? How do you feel about what we've done so far? And if you have any feedback that we can, that could help me to get you more engaged or do things that can be more suitable for the things you want. So I would really love to hear from you about what things can be done better, or what would you like to hear from me. What are the expectations, so I can make this a little bit more tailored to what you want, and feel confident that you will get there soon.
For me, the main problem I had was or is the motivation itself, because as I said sometime in the past, telling someone to eat less is very easy. Which is difficult is to keep that on time and make that person actually actually accomplish their goals, right? The calorie target. And I think I'm doing it good. It's true that sometimes, mm, especially with people, not when I'm alone, but when I go out for lunch or for dinner, I eat more than I should. And it's difficult for me to say no. In Spain, we share food all the time. So I cannot eat what I want, right? If 10 people want a pizza, I have to eat pizza. And I feel really guilty after that. And what I feel I need is this motivation that you are giving us about making it sustainable. that's that's for me, that's the key of all this program. It doesn't make sense if after 3 or 4 months I will go back to what I used to do before. So that's the reason why I'm here, and for the moment I'm very satisfied with that. And I want to say as well that I feel your work behind this program. I feel how you are engaged with us, how you work every day, how you prepare your calls with us, how worried you are for us, for our diet. And that makes me feel more engaged as well, because it's like a compromise. If you are, I should be as well, because
Yeah.
it's for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
yeah, so if
honestly,
yeah.
yeah, and honestly, this is the main purpose of this coaching program, is just a way to reach and being able to work with more a bigger group that I can help with more dedication and in a longer term. That is not just like a session with a dietitian. You go and see one day for 1 hour, and then you go home with a bunch of questions, and no one is there to actually get you anywhere. So the idea of this coaching program is kind of an extension of what I do with my one-on-one coaching clients, but in a bigger group, where I can just help solve problems in a little bit of a bigger situation with more people coming in the group. And I think it's been a nice experience to use this as a way to help more of you guys, and really try to get you in a better place, and where you can have better results, being sustainable, and feel good that you're progressing without feeling like you're going to fail. And like if you step back or you fall out of the wagon, you know you haven't messed up, and you can just get back on track and continue to stay consistent. And what I preach pretty much is the consistency part of it. If you're consistent and you continue to follow your plan as you thought about it before, you have your plan outlined, and you continue on that regardless of what happens. I know life happens, things happen, but if you continue on that pattern and try to do your best regardless of whatever, that consistency will get you to where you want to be. Even if it takes a little bit longer, that's okay. You're not in a race, as I said before. It's just about you and how can you find the right thing that works for you, and the time will just be depending on yourself. How fast can you go? That's on you. But you gotta think about sustainability. If you go too fast but it's not sustainable, then it's not appropriate. It's not good enough. So it's really thinking about the long term and shifting that mindset of quick and easy, or quick and hard. The better and the harder I go, the faster I will get to my results, but the more you will suffer. So that will compromise your results in long term, because you feel like you did so much in a short term that it is now time to relax, and you get back to your old habits, you gain back the weight you gained, you lost. So it is just being smart about it by thinking long term. What is going to be sustainable, not just the next 2 or 3 months, but what about 2 years? What about a 5-year plan? Think about that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think of 3-5 years, not 1 year. I think of the future. I think of myself when I'm 50 or 60 and how I want to be. And the only way is to not to learn because I know how to do it, but to keep on track, like on a regular basis. And that for me, that's the most difficult thing.
Yeah, and it takes time though. It is slow. It is something that can take years to actually figure out what's the best thing to do for yourself. But start small and have realistic goals that you know you can achieve today. And as you go, you will adjust. So it's a continuous reflection of where you at, how you feel, how does that make you feel. And if it feels good and it's working, then you just stay consistent. And if it's not working as you thought it would, maybe just adjust a little bit without making a very drastic change. Sometimes you might not see very big changes, but it doesn't mean it's not working, especially when it comes to look at your weight on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Your weight is not going to change very often, but it doesn't mean you're not having any progress. I had a client just recently that she stuck in the same weight for 2 weeks, even though she was doing everything we pretty much planned for her to do, and she wasn't having any progress. But you said, trust the process, stay consistent, let's keep going. And then the third week she weighed and she had lost like 4 pounds. So it is just a matter of being consistent and believing that if you know and truly know deep enough you're doing the right thing and you're doing what you're supposed to do, stay consistent. Even if you don't see much changes that quick, we need to be patient, and that's hard. Hey.
Yeah. Really hard.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all for today. If you have any further questions, just pop it in the notes or write them below in the group, and I'll be chatting to you guys very soon.
Okay, thank you, Astrid, for everything.
No worries.
Thank you for being there. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.